Hey folks, it's Rob, and welcome back. Um, Thank you all for, your participation and watching of the videos I've released so far. I'm continuing onwards, and today we're going to do the um, second solo adventure, which will start with an in-town portion. But, we're on page 13 of the player's rulebook. And let's get started. In the following one player adventure, you will explore a dungeon looking for monsters and treasures. Part 1 is a shopping trip in town. In Part 2, you will learn more about battles. And in Part 3, you will visit the dungeon. You will often be given choices and asked to pick one. Each choice gives a number. Turn to that number to find the results of your choice. Your adventure will continue from there. So, yeah, much like a choose your own adventure at that point, um, which those books really kind of came into being around this time. Um, at least I remember seeing them on the shelves, and I certainly enjoyed playing them. I had more than a few of them over the years, but I don't have. No, I think I might have one on the shelf somewhere. They quite often. I go thrifting looking for things because I could just go and spend I don't know $400 on Noble Knight and go buy plenty of things. I think I saw. When was the last time I saw an Immortal set? The Immortal set is something I keep shopping for, and I saw one recently for $400, and I am like, oh, uh, car payment, buy Immortal set. I'm fortunate that I'm in a place in my life where I can afford to indulge myself in my hobby, but at the same time, there's a part of me that grew up broke that goes $400 is so much money to spend on yourself. So I continue to fight over auctions and scavenge for bargains, and I guess it's a secondary hobby. But enough about that. Part 1, Town Business. You spend a few days in town, letting your wounds heal. Since you found so much treasure on your first adventure, you go shopping for some better armor, which is a smart idea, honestly. Armorer Baldwick. There's no R, it's a W. Baldwick knows you well. He's a jolly fellow, getting a bit gray. You remember snitching apples from the big tree in his yard when you were young and foolish. Well, well, he booms as you enter his shop. How have you been these days? All grown up now, I see. You chat for a few minutes about your younger days, and then you ask if he has any armor that would fit you. Why, surely. Let me see. Let me see here. He pushes his way through the racks of armor of all kinds, and you follow closely behind. There are dozens of sets of armor for people of all sizes, but most of them need repair. Ha! Yeah, he exclaims, pulling an armload of metal down. Try this on. The armor you are wearing is made of round chain links, all skillfully interwoven to form a covering for most of your body. But this armor is different. Large pieces of well crafted metal are fastened to chainmail and leather, fashioned into pieces that you could wear. Plate mail, of course, just finished it a week or two ago. Would you try it on? I think you'll fit. I think it'll fit. Sorry, folks. Sometimes I just do little edits in my own head because I think that would be the natural thing to say. Sorry. I am endeavoring to try to read this as it is. You go to the back room and remove your chainmail and try this heavier armor on for size. Sure enough, it fits, almost as if it was made just for you. The metal plates hang from leather straps and chainmail links, forming a tough protective suit. But it's very heavy, almost twice as heavy as your chainmail. You come out to show him, and he walks around you carrying a piece of charcoal and marking the armor here and there for some necessary adjustments. Looks good, he exclaims. Just a bit here and a bit here. Want to trade that chainmail you had on? Looks to be in pretty good shape. Wait a minute, you reply. Don't you have anything lighter than this stuff? I'm not going to be able to carry as much treasure if I wear all this metal. Ah, well, he says soothingly. If you want better protection, you have to use this. Unless, of course, you can somehow find magical armor. Plate mail will improve your armor class to AC 2, better than your current AC 4, so it would be nice to have. Well, how much, you ask? Well, 75 gold pieces as is. Want to trade in that chainmail? He repeats. Oh, I guess so. How much? For you? Well, since you're trying to get started, since I've known you so long, 50 gold pieces with your trade in. Kids, don't get done. You talk with him a bit more using your charisma and bargain him down to a better price. Okay. Just 30 gold pieces with the trade in, and you promise to come here the next time you need better armor or more weapons. Agreed? And he stomps off, grumbling, then stops to turn. You can pick it up Tuesday. Pay the clerk on your way out. Substitute 30 gold pieces worth of coins for the money on your character sheet. You can either subtract it from your GP or use some coins of lesser value if you understand a conversion table. Change the numbers on your sheet to account for your spending and change your equipment list. Then turn the sheet over and change your armor class to 2. You come back to the shop in a few days and pick up your heavy plate mail. It's not ready on Tuesday, but you have time to wait. You spend the time looking around for other adventurers. Any help would be welcome, but a few you find all just want to relax, have a good time, and heal up from their last adventures. So, fully equipped, but still alone, you set off one morning for the caves near town, remembering to watch out for ghouls. So, let's talk about battles. Part 2, Battles. You're almost ready to enter the dungeon, but first you need to learn a little more about battles. You already know how to swing at a monster. You roll 1d20, a 20-sided die, and compare the results to the hit roll given in the description. If you rolled that number or higher, you hit the enemy and roll damage. More damage? In your first adventure, each time you hit a monster, you did 1 point of damage. However, from now on, you will roll 1d6, a 6-sided die, to see how much damage you do to the creature you are fighting. You will keep track of the damage in the same way, writing down the starting number and subtracting the damage each time you hit. Just cross off the old number of hit points and write down the new number. It occurs to me that 1 point of damage per hit is very, very old school. I think kind of like more, I can't say authoritatively. I want to say it's a bit chainmail-y. But it's, interesting that we use that as an introduction. The monsters. Monsters will also be able to do more damage. In your one-player games, you will keep track of their damage on a separate sheet of paper along with your own. In group games, the Dungeon Master keeps track of all the monster details. Some monsters do 1 to 6 points of damage, just as you do, but sometimes they do more or less than 1d6. Each time you encounter a monster, the information you need will be given in a box like this. So here we have a box that says Goblin, 17, U, 12, D, 1d6, HP, 4. The number after the monster's name is the roll it needs to hit your fighter. Now, as AC 2, that's going to be your plate mail and shield. And yeah, I need to roll a 17 or better for a goblin to hit you. You'd be surprised how often that can happen, though, and at a bottom level, next thing you know, you're taking a dirt nap. I think my wife died 5 times in her first adventure. But that's how dice are sometimes, right? The number after the monster's name is we were saying in this example, you will roll a 12 or higher. You hit the goblin. You then roll 1d6, the standard amount, and add 2 for your strength bonus. You subtract that total from the goblin's 4 HP as given above. If the goblin's new total is 0 or less, the creature is dead. If the goblin still has any hit points left, it swings at you. So, got a nice little d6 right here, right? For example, if we rolled a 2, plus 2 is 4, kills the goblin right away. If we got a 4 hit point goblin, like I was saying in I think the first video, very likely you could have killed the goblin in one blow. And that's just with a d6 sword. There are better weapons to be wielding. So, if you roll a 17 or higher for the goblin's attack, he hits you for 1 to 6 points of damage as noted on the box above. You roll the 6-sided die and subtract the result from your 8 hit points. So obviously, you can tank one hit, regardless of how strong it is. But if it's a strong hit, you may be ready to back off. And that's the thing about classic Dungeons and Dragons adventures, is that sometimes discretion is the better part of valor. If you don't want to just up and die, maybe it's best to turn around and go back to town. Just gonna say, keep that in mind if you ever decide to play games for yourself, that sometimes turning around and going home is the right answer. Combat checklist. A step-by-step list of everything you need to do while fighting a monster is given on the same page as the monster description, the box information. Use this checklist for every battle to be sure you are running each one correctly. Record keeping. Use a piece of scrap paper to keep track of the battles. Whenever you find some treasure, write down the amount and type on the same paper. Experience points will be given at the end of the adventure, but you will need a list of the creatures your fighter conquers. All the points for treasure and experience will be added up at the end of the adventure. Getting killed. If your character is slain by monsters, that is the end of the adventure, but it is not the end of the game. You can start the fighter over again, pretending that it is a new character. If you play this adventure a second time, do not keep any treasure found before you got killed. You should start the character over again from the beginning. Remember that you are carrying a magical potion of healing. If you get hurt, you can drink it, and it'll cure all your damage. You can then change your hit points back to 8. You can only drink it once, and then it's gone. And that's not really how the potion of healing typically works. There's a random vector. But in this case, great. You may drink the potion whenever you wish, but you should wait until you only have 2 or 3 hit points left if possible. If you drink it in the middle of the battle, you must skip your attack. You are drinking, not swinging, and roll only for the monster's attack for that round of combat. Things to remember. 1. Keep a record of the monsters killed and treasure found using a separate piece of paper. 2. Use the combat checklist whenever you have a battle. 3. Roll 1d6 each time you are hit to find the amount of damage done. 4. Drink your potion when you are badly hurt. Mapping. This time, you will make a map of the dungeon so you don't get lost. Maps also help in remembering where the worst monsters were, like the ghouls, so you can avoid them until you feel ready for them. You will draw your map on a piece of graph paper. Each line 1 square long will equal 10 feet in the dungeon. Copy each map carefully. Draw an arrow pointing to the top of the paper and label it north, and then draw a line across the arrow and label east, south, and west. This will help you remember the directions. As you draw your maps, be sure to write notes on it to help you remind you where things are. If you don't make a map as you go, you will probably get confused. And this is true. Let's see, I guess we have time to actually get started into the dungeon itself. I do have graph paper to hand. And some scrap paper I'm going to do tabulation on. But I'm going to need to basically separate out a sheet for mapping. And I should have done this in advance. Sorry about that. Somehow I thought this part would take longer. Right, nice blank sheet of graph paper, right? And let's go put our little, here's our north, south, east, west, right? All ready to go. And since I've kind of done this thing a few times before, I'll have an idea where to place the sections we get. As you can see, they'll give us bits to draw onto the graph paper, and we just kind of populate out the map that way. So, this sheet, which I've already was using for a game I was playing in a couple days ago with, I'm going to humble brag, I got into a game with the Dungeon Minister. He was running it. And that was fantastic, honestly. I had a great time. Highly recommend his channel. Check it out. He runs a channel where he describes the game he runs for his children and his wife. And been watching him for years, and it's great. But let's get to this. Part 3. Into the caves. Since you explored some of the caves earlier, you find yet another entrance to venture into this time. After finding a suitable cave, you pause to be sure you are ready. The caves are dark and dreary, as you remember from the last time, so you get out your lantern and light the wick, using your tinderbox. Then carefully you step into the first room. Tear the sheet of graph paper out of the center of the booklet, then starting near the bottom, copy entry 1 map. That's this one. And I'm not tearing the sheet out of my book. I think, I forget what I paid for this, because I got it from Goodwill, honestly. And I did well, but it escapes me exactly what I paid. But let's get this sketched on here. So we have basically the entrance. And then we have a 50 by 50 room, which has corridors leading off to either side. And this here in the middle is a statue. And I know this without having to read it right now. That's also our standard symbol for statues for D&D maps. And boy, howdy did I use this starting room configuration for so many dungeons of my own. I know it's not terribly inspired, but at the same time it was terribly utilitarian. I have given the players multiple options as to which way to go. Now maybe I didn't have the entrance like right outside, but yeah, maybe this is on a dais. I'd do that. Maybe sometimes I'd have 4 statues here in the middle, and stairs leading up to the middle, and maybe something's in the middle there. But, man, maybe I didn't put that necessarily at the very start of the dungeon. But that's been in a lot of things. So, entry 1. The room you are in is 50 feet square with 10-foot wide exits in the middle of each north, south, east, and west walls. The ceiling of the room is 15 feet up, but the corridors are only 10 feet tall. The walls, floor, and ceiling are made of tough rock. There are some cracks and crevices in the rock walls, all very small. Standing in the exact center of the room is a stone statue of a woman in armor. You examine it carefully and finally even touch it, but it is merely a statue, nothing magical or special. You have entered this 50-foot square room by the southern corridor, which leads out to fresh air and sunlight. The other corridors are dark. The light from your lamp helps, but shadows linger in the corners of this large room. Do you want to stop and listen, search the room, go down a corridor? Well, I think we should search the room. Why not, right? So we go to entry 57, and that means we have to skip forward in our book and locate entry 57. And there we go. You search the room carefully, and you find a small scrap of paper in the niche. Small hole. Because you probably may not necessarily be familiar with the word niche, because you may be 10. In one wall. Opening it, you discover a note written in common tongue. Rats, east. Goblins, north. Beware, west. You can also see parts of the corridors leading out of the room, which look like entry 57 map, which is this one. So we'll expand what we have. And so now this goes 3 off that way. And this one goes up and over. Like that. And we know rats and goblins. And then just simply beware. Right? So, you find nothing else in the room. Return to 1. So, we flip back. We're not going to read the entire thing again, but we have our options. We've searched the room, but we maybe want to stop and listen. I think that's prudent. That's 42. 42 is below this imposing picture, which we're not involved with right now. You stop and listen and hear squeaking noises to the east. Well, that confirms the rats, doesn't it? Go back to 1. So, go down a corridor. That's entry 58. Now, that was right below 57. So, go east, go west, go north, or go south, young man. South doesn't make a lot of sense. That's the way we came in. That's option 2. East is the rats, west is beware, and north is the goblins. I feel like it makes sense to want to go after the rats first, but you know what? Let's get out a die, because I know what's in each direction, right? And maybe I'm just letting that guide me. So, I'll read the entry for number 2 if it comes up, but let's re-roll that. And here we go. So, option 1 is east. I don't know if that came over in the camera. Yeah, it comes over in the camera. Okay. So, east is entry 79. If you have already been through this part of the dungeon, read 76. Otherwise, continue. The corridor goes 50 feet east and opens into another room. What are you expecting here, and why? You may have found 1 or 2 clues. If you haven't found or heard any clues, read 11. If you only found a note that mentions creatures, read 44. If you only heard creature sounds, read 71. If you did both, heard noise and found the note, read 59. Okay. So, as you approach the room, you hear more squeaks. You wisely shutter your lantern, leaving only a dim reddish glow, and peek into the room. You see 3 giant rats scurrying around and some scattered treasure nearby. Do you want to go back, talk to them, try to scare them, or attack? Now, I will say, there's really not much point talking to giant rats. And we're here for adventure, and we're not hurt. And I'm not going to back off from 3 giant rats at this point. So those are off the table. But Try to scare them or attack. Well, I mean, I'm inclined towards just attacking, but let's leave it to chance, right? So 1 to 3, we'll try to scare them. 4 to 6, I'll attack. We're attacking. Okay. For those not watching, I rolled a 5. So 68. You jump out and swing at the rats. Read 83, but take 2 free swings before the rats can do anything. Then run the rest of the fight normally. So let's go to 83. But I get 2 free swings at the rats first. You're having a battle with giant rats. 3 of them are here, unless you scared one off. The area looks like Entry 83 map. Entry 83 map is this. So now we incorporate that into our map. So that was 1, 2, 3, 4, 50 feet. So we bring this over another 20. And then we come down 20 like this, over 30. This comes over 20, up 10, and then there's 40 on the back wall, right? And that is the rats. So, need to run combat on 3 rats. And I just knocked over the tube from my secondary dice set. So, our stat block. Giant rats need 17 to hit me. I need 10 to hit them. They do a D3 to me, and each one's 2 hit points. So all I need to do is hit the rat to kill a rat. Because I have +2 damage on any damage I do. So, as the entry says, run the battle normally using the combat checklist to be sure you are doing it correctly. If you don't remember what 1d3 means, read the section on dice again, page 12. Now, 1d3 is, just to refresh you, is a d6 divided by 2 rounding up. So a 1 is still a 1, 2 is a 1, 3 is 2, 4 is 2, 5 is 3, 6 is 3. If all the rats will fight until dead. If you decide to run away, 1 rat will bite you as you turn to run, roll for damage. But then, if you are still alive, you can go back to the statue room. If so, read 58. If you kill all the rats, read 78. And if the rats kill you, read 90. Right. I'm hoping, with 2 free swings, that we can kill some rats. I'm going to write down on this sheet, as our first thing, rat, rat, rat. They're giant rats, so it's not as simple as just regular rats, but let's try killing some rats. Rat 1. First free attack is a miss on a 5. Let's use the box. Second one. That's a hit. And if I hit a rat, I kill a rat. So, strike a rat. That was my free 2 attacks. So now we've got to use the combat checklist, which is right here. So, player actions. You make a hit roll. If you hit, roll 1d6 to find out the damage done to the monster, adding 2 for your strength bonus. I'm not rolling the d6. I mean, I can, but whatever 1 plus 2 is still 3, and 3 is more than 2. So that's the minimum damage I could do, so there's no point in rolling the d6. Subtract that damage from the monster's hit points. When the hit points reach 0, the monster is dead. So we're just kind of assuming out that step, basically. Because if I hit the rat, I kill the rat. Monster actions. Make hit rolls. 1 for each monster. There may be more than 1 monster attacking at the same time. For each attack that hits you, roll to find out the damage done to you, then using the dice indicated. Then, subtract that damage from your hit points. If your hit points reach 0, you're dead. So I'm going to just put a little 8 right here on my sheet. And that's my running hit point total right now. So I attack. And since we're not really playing with initiative here, everything's going to have to just be effectively simultaneous, I feel. So, right, my first non-surprise attack is a hit. So that will kill a rat. But that rat is going to get a reply, as does its buddy. And they need 17 to hit me. Miss. And that's a hit. So I got to get out the D6. Because I'm not dying in one blow. Now remember, half a D6 is a D3. 1 divided by 2 is rounded up, is still going to be 1. So I take 8 point of damage. I scratch out the 8 on my sheet here. And I write a 7. And now we're going to have our next round of combat, where it's man versus rat. So again, I need a 10 to hit the rat. Hey, just hit the rat. Okay. That kills the rat. But the rat will bite me in its simultaneous combat round. So, that slipped out of my hand, but it's in the box. I'll take it. The rat missed me. So I took a small bite from the rats. But I have defeated all the rats. So we are to read 78. You have won the battle with the giant rats. Searching the room, you find 100 copper pieces and 100 silver pieces scattered in the messy rat lair, and you put them in the sacks that you are carrying. Now, do you want to go north or go west, young man? Well, we came from the west. North makes sense. We know that there's goblins over here, and maybe I want to encounter them before I'm too beat up. But I think we'll leave the video there since we're at a half hour. And we'll pick up next time. Thank you very much for watching. And I hope you're having a great day. Goodbye.